have some great questions for candidates. We're going to kick off here, giving each candidate a 5-minute opportunity to make a statement, and then we'll go to our question and answers. So please turn your cards in up here if you've got some questions you want us to ask. The questions will be moderated. Ken, if you'd like to start.
Gene Tessner, I'm one of the county commissioners. First ran in 2006 and elected and started in 2007. And yes, this would be my fourth term if electorate so wished. My emphasis is county and county-wide. And my theme is what I don't like to say I was going to do this or this, because there's so many things out there to get done that you don't know about. But the overall health and welfare of the county is my main theme. And protect the interests and to promote anything that would help benefit the overall county.
Thank you. Bruce?
Short and sweet. Need a little bit more, but not much. Some of you may remember I ran for position 1 in 2016. Political novice. I am not a politician, and I'm not much of a campaigner. You probably noticed that. But I came within 41 votes of winning against a 4-term commissioner. So I gave it my best shot. I'm back again for a lot of reasons. You know, just really quick, who am I? Well, I've lived in Lake County for about 20 years. I chose to move here, so it's our chosen home. I was not obviously born here, but I've lived here now longer than I've lived anywhere in my life, and we're here because we want to be here. I'm kind of familiar with some of economic issues. My wife, who's here somewhere, has a shop in Lakeview, Goose Tracks. Go there to buy your quilts and fabric supplies, please. And we also have a real small farming operation, but we also have worked for the federal government, for NASA, remotely now for years. I'm now retired. That was somewhat of an issue last time. Folks said, how can you do 2 jobs? And I said, well, if I'm elected, I'll quit. Well, I wasn't elected and I didn't quit, but I have now retired. So as of 23rd of March, I am no longer have another job. But I have a lot of experience. My experience working for NASA and the federal government is almost 50 years. I've been an engineer, I've been a program manager, people manager, large programs, small programs. I know how to pull things together to get things done. I would say I'm good at that. Modestly, I'll say that. I'd like to apply those skills to improve things in Lake County. That's why I'm here. I look at it almost as a civic duty. I'm 72 years old. I'm not going to be running for multiple terms, so you won't see me back here for a 4th term. It's not going to happen. But I'm not ready to hang up the spurs yet either. And so I have abilities and experience and skills that I would like to apply here, and I look on it as somewhat of a civic duty. I'm now in a position where I can do that. One of the things that I'd like to see, and we did mention this briefly a couple of years ago, and I still haven't seen that it's really happened, is a kind of a coherent vision for Lake County. What is looking ahead, not behind. We tend to do a lot of looking backwards, saying, well, the economy in some areas is pretty bad. Let's make it like it used to be 30 years ago. Not going to happen. The world has changed. Look ahead. What do we want Lake County to be in 10, 20, 30 years? And that would, if we had a coherent vision that was stated clearly, that gives you sort of an anchor to hang things on. So if we want to take on a project for this or that or the other thing, you would ask the question. You wouldn't necessarily say no, but you would ask the question, does that help us? If we're successful in that project, is that going to help us to achieve that vision that we've agreed on? And that's about it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Charlie?
Yeah, my name's Charlie. I've been here a little over 7 years. Spent 9 years in the military, worked for the Department of Defense, and worked top secret for the civil service. Altogether, I got 17 years service, been all the way around the world and seen how things work and how our government works, state, local, and nationwide. And I see a lot of changes that need to be done in this county, and I'd like to also see a lot of things done more for seniors of this county. I mean, they're our history, as I call it. I mean, raised us and took care of us, and we need to take care of them too. And there's a lot of infrastructure in the county that can be changed and worked with grants and a few other things. I can't name many of them right now, but you know, I'd like to see big change. I myself came here because I wanted to be here, and I love Lake County. I spend more time in town talking to people than I do at home, so. Yeah, that's. I like to see a lot of changes. Like I say, we got to go forward. We can't look back at what happened 30 years ago. I mean, this county's going to grow one way or another. Are we going to welcome it, or are we just going to fight it and be where we are now? And we need to come up with ways to create more revenue for the county and better build the infrastructure.
Thank you. Jane?
I have a little something prepared. I'd like to thank the North Lake Chamber of Commerce for hosting the forum, and the North Lake School. My name is James Williams. I grew up here in Lake County, Summer Lake. It's been my home all of my life. Growing up on our family farm, we raised sheep and cattle. I had a large family of 5 siblings. Some now work for the state, our local schools, and even teach at colleges here in Oregon. I worked in construction with my father during my early years, but have since had a wide variety of jobs all over the United States. I traveled with a yearning to learn more about the country we live in. I learned many skills, but more importantly, I learned a lot about people. And no matter what your background, if you find common ground and you're willing to work together, you can accomplish almost anything. In 2013, I met my wife while on a working trip in Texas. We planned to start a family and raise our children in the community where I grew up in. So as you can imagine, the direction of Lake County is very important to me. I have an understanding of this county and the state issues that can only be understood by someone who has lived here their entire life. People ask me, why do you want to be commissioner? What's your vision for Lake County? Although those questions are very general in nature, my answer is simple. First and foremost, I love my community, and I want to preserve it for the future generations. But there will always be improvements that can be made. I want you, the residents of Lake County, to choose the direction we go from here. I will listen to you and do whatever I can to help our county prosper. There are many issues, communication across the county and state, our budget, law enforcement, land use issues, industry, drugs, jobs, a workforce to fill the jobs, housing. These are just a few of the many issues I hope to address as your commissioner. I may not always have the answers, but I will always look for solutions that benefit Lake County and the people that live here. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Michael?
Good evening, everyone. Michael Statler, Christmas Valley. Been a Lake County resident here in Christmas Valley for 12 years. I wound up in Lake County because my parents were interested in buying a piece of America. Penn Phillips was marketing in Southern California in the early 70s, and they bought a piece of America with the name Christmas Valley in the 70s, and that was part of their dream. My mom passed, it's almost 20 years now, and Dad said he was never going to come up here and do anything, and I just kind of came up after 40 years in Southern California to the town that I knew I had a piece of property in with a golf course and an airport. So the golf course will keep me for a little while, but the airport, that might just keep me for the rest of my days. But I think they're going to bury me out here, that's for sure. I'm still getting started, been camping for 10 years essentially. I want to develop my own property. Involved with politics my entire life, professional life. Coming to Lake County, I just have been, 2016 we ran for state senate, when our state senator had withdrawn from the race in questionable circumstances. But for Lake County, and why I seek to be your county commissioner, Dan Chown has been our commissioner now. He's had a tremendous amount of experience in the federal circles, We have a lot, 70% of the land that's owned in Lake County is federal and excuse me, requires a lot of attention, maintenance, things that are just, there are a lot of discussions going out into the state regarding moving federal lands into state lands. There are a lot of discussions regarding redistricting in order to represent the north end and the people better in Lake County. Not that there is a need there, but an attention and bringing some energy and awareness to the timetables. Our census is coming up on 2020. That's an exciting perspective for somebody who might be a county commissioner as we redistrict the state in more, let's say, representative fashion. Being a part involved in government, we have the Red Rock Biofuels plant that's down in Lakeview. It's, I believe the bonds have been approved. They're not sold yet. The facility is, by a show of hands, how many people know what the Red Rock Biofuels facility is in Lakeview? Okay. They want to make jet fuel out of biomass to build a global, the Department of Defense wants to build a global portfolio of biorefineries to be dropping fuel needs for the Navy and Department of Defense, just for fuel diversification. That's a project that's exciting for the county, bringing a lot of work. I spent my life as an electrician in and around the industry in California. I haven't worked much in the trade since I've been here, but being a part of these solar sites, mitigating the concerns of people up here, improving the property, infrastructure was mentioned by many. That's something that I really have bring a specialty for. And being single, no, nothing else would say would be in the way of me dedicating 100% of my time, talent, treasure to being your representative in the County Commission. So I thank you for coming out on Tuesday night. We all have to be in Lakeview tomorrow for another candidate, but we're real close to the ballots coming out, so I thank you for the time to invest in our democratic processes. One more small thing that I've involved myself in Oregon, the 2nd Congressional District, I'm responsible for a campaign finance group in the Senate districts on this side of the Cascades. We lobby in Salem for campaign finance reform and elections. I think just being up on the panel and coming to these forums, we'll get a chance to answer your concerns. I become a better citizen in our county and in our nation in general. And bringing the divide between north and south in the county, east and west in the state, liberal and conservative in the nation, the polarization, we need to really work on how can we come together and identify ourselves as people in the county, and what can we do to improve not only our living standards, but the relationships that we have inside our county and outside our county with all the things, our ambulance districts, volunteers. We don't have the time tonight to go into all of it, but I'm appreciative of all those people who volunteer their time, come out to hear these forums, who host the forums, who pay for the recording of these events. I think I've passed my 5 minutes, and I want to yield back any time to the next candidate.
Thank you, Mark.
I'm Mark Albertson. I'm a lifelong resident of Lake County. I was born and raised. I was born in the senior center, which is now, well, it is now the senior center. It's the old Lake Hospital. I married my wife Tanya. She's my high school sweetheart. We have 4 kids and 8 grandchildren. My dad and mom, their parents homesteaded in Lakeview and Yoakum Valley, which is about 22 miles east of Lakeview, 28 miles. And his father before him homesteaded in Bandon, Oregon in 1869. And so when I'm asked why I'm here, it's pretty obvious because I love the people. I pastored a church for several years. I worked for Ed Stahl and Sons for 10 years. I relieved Mike and then Rick Hawkins when they go out hunting up here. I made bacon. I got a job at the jail. And see, 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago. And I seen the darker sides of Lake County and what drugs and alcohol and abuse and the hopelessness of the people. And I worked a graveyard shift. Graveyard weekends was my shift. And so I spent many a night talking to the inmates and trying to get them to turn a different direction. And then I got a job at the juvenile department. I'm a youth investment coordinator. So I'm up here every week. I meet with over 40 kids a week from Lakeview to North Lake. That's a little bit about my background. The reason I ran for commissioner is I love the people, and I do want to bind us together. I do not want a separation any longer of north, south, or east or west. It's like having a team of horses. If you have two horses and they're pulling, each one of them's pulling a different direction, nothing gets done. And one of my gifts is to bring people together, to delegate duties. And I don't have all the answers for all the questions, but I can guarantee you this: I will find the answer. I will be at work every day, and I will find the answer to your questions. I will work to find your problems. And to be honest, it's not about any of us here. It's about all of us. And it's not going to make a difference who you vote for as long as we come together as a people. And just vote with your heart. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Okay, we got some questions you can turn in. Here's some. Here's some more. Any more? Any more questions?
Don't you have some up here?
Okay, I got some there. Okay, so we're just about to get started here. Give us a minute to look through these real quick. There are refreshments up here if anybody needs to get some. Okay, got a couple of them here I'm going to start with. This one is for Mark Albertson and Bruce Weatherman. What three issues do you see as most relevant to citizens in the north end of Lake County?
You want me to go first?
Would you like to start? Go ahead.
The biggest issues that I found in North Lake County, one is the roads system. We all know that you guys need good roads to haul your hay and fertilizer and other products in and out. The way I look at it is kind of like Abert Lake, where the water flows in and nothing comes out. It's stagnant. If we don't have you guys a good road system, it's going to cripple you guys and the whole county. Because you guys are a lot further ahead than we are in the southern Lake County as far as moving product. And so you guys can be very proud of that. Number two issue would probably be government regulations on whether it be grazing, water rights, which I believe we need to be proactive on. We're always behind the 8 ball on environmental groups trying to take our grazing or our water rights away. And it's like we're getting punched in the side of the head and we don't see it coming. But if we're more proactive and seeing those things, we're ahead of the game on that. The third would be, I think the third is not really a problem. It's probably this school. This school, you guys should be so stinking proud of, because it's a class act up here. It's ran well, it's beautiful. One thing that I do want to talk about with the school is security. And I've been meeting with ESD on security of all of our schools in Lake County. Whether it be an SRO, which is a paid police officer to be in your school, to fortify the doors so they're buzzed in and out like you guys have. We don't have that in Southern Lake County. The problem is that sometimes the window's left open. You know, we got to start paying attention about those things. So it's not really a problem. It's just something that we need to start addressing to protect our kids. It has nothing to do with guns, because I'm pro-gun. I just bought an AR-15 myself, and I just bought a scope at the gun show. It's not guns, it's mental health problems. And I deal with mental health problems at work every day. And I'm the first line of defense for those kids. To lead those kids in a way where they're not going to be so distressed that they're going to come into your school and shoot it. If it's over my head, which some of the youth are over my head, then we have the mental health. I send them to mental health. I refer them to mental health. But your guys' mental health is growing, and it's a great thing. You got some good people down there that work hand in hand with us. And so, that's all I have to say on that.
Thank you, Mike. Ken?
Was it Bruce?
I think it was
Bruce.
yes, three things.
I think we'll actually continue that question to the rest of you as well. So after looking through some of the other stuff, but we'll go through it.
Okay. Yeah, well, three general areas. There's a lot of subsets of each of these. One is ordinance enforcement. That's an issue all over the county. It's certainly an issue here, and it's definitely an issue in the south end of the county. I'll talk a little more in a minute. One that I think is important is better access to government functions, and that has a lot of subsections. Better communications. Why should you have to drive 100 miles to go to the courthouse to sign a document and then leave after 5 minutes and then come home? There's ways to fix some of those problems, and it's not that expensive. Education, Mark just mentioned this. This is a beautiful building, but there is an issue that I only recently was made aware of, which has to do with the community college district. And I'm really fairly ignorant of it, but it's an issue that now that I'm coming to understand and appreciate it a little bit, it definitely needs to be worked. Where basically money, tax money, is going outside of the county for services that aren't being provided in the county. And KCC, for example, is providing those services, but the students here are paying more in tuition. They're paying basically out-of-district tuition, and that's wrong. Back to the ordinance issue for a second. Last time when I ran in 2016, I toured a lot of areas at both ends of the county, and there's trash dumps. You all know this. There's places that are covered with trash. There's hazards. Some of it's on county land, and that's really inexcusable. There are ordinances against it. I've read the county ordinance, the nuisance ordinance on that specific issue, and it's actually pretty well written. It's just not enforced. And there was an effort made to enforce it, and for reasons that I'm not totally familiar, it really is just going down the tube, so it's not being enforced. That's a big problem. I mentioned briefly the access. Well, we can't fix the distance. There's a long physical distance, but we can improve communications. There are ways to do that didn't exist 10 and 20 years ago. There is a comm link in this building, between this building, KCC, and the campus in Lakeview. And perhaps there's a way to either expand that network and extend it to the courthouse in some way to make it accessible so people can have meetings, essentially real-time meetings where you can see and talk to the people. You can also sign documents electronically. That's been around for a long time. So why should you have to drive, again, 100 miles to sign a piece of paper and then turn around and go home. You can do that electronically. That's all doable and it's not that expensive, and I think it would help a lot. Better access to the commissioners, for instance. There's a lot of different ways to do that, and I know they try and have meetings around the county periodically. I'm not sure if that's the only thing that should be done. Maybe there should be a regular schedule where there's a commissioner up here in the north end of the county 2 days a month, or, I don't know what it should be. I'm not sure that's the best answer, but things like that need to be looked at. The education issue, I understand that is being worked, and I believe Commissioner Kestner is far more knowledgeable of that than I am. But that seems very unfair if you're paying tax dollars and it's going out of the county and where we need it. And again, the students are paying higher tuition than they should because of that problem. That's about it.
Thank you. Let's go ahead with Ken with the thing.
I have lots of passion, but one of the biggest passion I have is our kids and their education. I work really hard to try to get internet. I've used the example that when I grew up, the Encyclopedia Britannica was my window to the world. You won't find the encyclopedia in most houses nowadays. It's the internet for our kids. Both have, we work to get broadband internet to Paisley and Morgan Valley. You have internet up here with internet extension, but we have dead spots in places, maybe Silver Lake, Summer Lake, of course, and others. But not only do I want to get the internet to the schools, I want to get it to the households for the kids, because they deserve to be on the same page with their fellow kids in the metropolitan area. But also, they are also the people who will be sitting right here in 20 years, our future leaders. On nuisance, when I first came on in 07, I brought up the subject of nuisance. We have a nuisance ordinance, and we said it's well written. But I couldn't make much headway on that. And then about 5 years later, I brought it up and couldn't make much headway. But thanks to a group up here that came down and made a presentation to all the commissioners, we got the person hired, but we still don't have teeth in the enforcement. If you have a nuisance, the first step is a light touch, to talking to a person, and most people would come around. But some people just won't come around, so you need the next step to get them on. But on the transportation and the roads, that is a concern. We put a lot of, when I say we county roads, we have put a lot into the main county roads, but there's a lot of public roads up here that's in our needs, and those need to be addressed. We have to find some funding operations, whether it be another community service fee on some projects or something, but we need to get, because I get emails all the time, and even talking to our county folks who comes up, DHS or whoever, that goes around. And Mark will know it also, because he comes up with the juvenile. Some of the roads you just cannot get to. And I heard about this one lady, an elderly lady, I heard about a year ago, that the public transit would take that person, that lady, only so far out on the road, and they drop her off and let her walk on this way. That's a vehicle. So it is a big issue that we need to address in some fashion to find funding to blade the roads periodically. But the overall, we're working on many different things, but again, I come back to my one passion. Get our kids a good start for today and for tomorrow.
Thank you, Ken. Which one would you like to be next? Wayne? How about you?
Me? All right. Sure. One of the 3 issues it was? 3 of the main issues? No, I'll give you 3. One of the big ones, I think, for the north end specifically, I think, would be representation. The south end of the county has Lakeview and Paisley. Those are both incorporated cities. They have mayors, they have city council, they have representation that they can go to usually when there's an issue within the city limits. Christmas Valley, Fort Rock, Silver Lake, Summer Lake, Plush, Adel, they do not have any other representation aside from the commissioner's office. When there's a problem, that's who they go to. That's who they need to go to. They need to talk to someone. And if the commissioners are only down here one time per year, it makes it a little tough. So that is something that needs to change, and it's been brought up already by the other candidates. And because I live up here on this end, I can understand that problem. When you have one individual driving all the way to Lakeview, a couple 100-mile round trip, just for a court date that gets canceled in the middle of winter, and has to turn around and drive all the way back, that is outrageous. And it actually puts lives at risk. There's been deputies and sheriffs that have been killed on these roads out here. Another issue, aside from just having better representation down here, and like Bruce even said, I don't know exactly what that would look like, whether it's having a commissioner down here a couple times a week that's actually scheduled to be down here, or whether we just have more meetings. One of the things I would like to do is have meetings on a weekend, because I struggle with it, working 60, 70 hours a week at the sawmill in Lakeview right now. I can't make any of the commissioner meetings, period, because they're in the middle of the day, in the middle of the week, and the working men can't go, and that's just the way it is. So I think that needs to change, and I think we do need better representation on this end, simply because that's what the people ask for. Another issue I think would probably be jobs. The issue of jobs is we have some big things happening. Red Rock Fuel, of course, coming in. There's promise of 30 to 40 jobs coming with Red Rock Fuel, but again, that's just down in Lakeview. As I've said down there, if you bring in jobs like that with 100 jobs of truckers and then 40 some odd jobs right there in the factory, heck, that's a lot of work. That could sustain a lot of families, but where are you going to get those people? Because I've got a stack of applications this high down at the Lakeview Sawmill, and I can't hire a single one of them. And because not a single one of them can pass a drug test. And that's just the reality that we live in. And we've actually lightened up. A lot of the businesses have lightened up on things like criminal backgrounds. You know, if you've committed a crime at one point in your life, why are we still persecuting this person if they've been clean for some years? And they haven't done anything. They're trying to get back into society, they're trying to do everything, and they're trying to turn their life around. Why aren't we hiring them? So we did. We hired a bunch of guys, actually, and they're really good workers. We've got some great millwrights down there right now. And so we do things like that, but at the same time, I'm still not hiring someone if they can't pass the drug test. Simply because I work in machinery that can chew a man up in a nanosecond. And on a good day, it may be fine. On a bad day, you go out for your 2 o'clock break and you come back in a little bit stoned, you go flick a machine on, when I'm in there working on it, I'm gone. That's it. I got a wife, I got a family, I'm not doing that. And I think that there's a lot of men that feel the same way. So it is a big issue, and I want to try and find a way to address it without penalizing people. Try and find a way to get somebody back on track. We've got NA programs and AA programs down here in this county. But then, you know, the place where they have the AA meetings, they put in a marijuana dispensary right next to it. So these guys go in for a meeting, they're trying to clean up their life, they come out and the temptation's directly in front of them. And so that's rough. And that's after 70% of this county voted no on the subject. And Lakeview went ahead and said that it was okay within city limits, and went against the voters. So, you know, those are things that should be addressed, should be looked at. I want to try and find solutions for it. I want to try and find a way to help those individuals get back in the workforce, because they're able-bodied men. They can work, but they're in a bad cycle. And unless you find a way to break that cycle and stop it, you're going to lose these people. And when you bring in more families for jobs like Red Rock, they want to come with their families, and they don't want to come with their families to an environment that threatens their children. And so that is something that we need to address. And again, when you bring in extra families, I do want to pose the last issue, that brings me to my last point, is housing. Where are you going to live? Where are these people going to live if they come into this county? You got 100 some odd jobs, 100 families coming into this county. Where are they going to live? There's some great housing in Lakeview, for instance. There's some houses out here that are fairly new that a new family might want to live in, but they're, does a family really want to pay $250,000 for a house when they're first starting out? Does a young person have the money to do that? No, absolutely not. The answer isn't government housing either. I've talked with a bunch of individuals on this. We talked about tiny home projects. We talked about trying to do clean house projects that would, clean, affordable housing, that you could do rentals for people in a community that you could actually do land use restrictions. Someone dumps trash outside, you cite them. Say, hey, you gotta get this cleaned up. And you can do that without violating private property rights, especially if it's a rental. And if they do clean it up within a certain period of time, you don't fine them. And suddenly you have a community that's fairly clean, it's restricted within the confines of that community. And a single mom with kids starting out can actually afford it. So anyway, that's a really big topic. Those are the three things that are on my mind that I think are probably most important.
Okay, Charlie or Michael, who wants to go next?
Thank you. I think the number one concern for people who are still on our working population is jobs. We know that our population is aging, but for those who are up here, we need some jobs. We've got some opportunities in renewable energy right now, not only with the biofuel plant in Lakeview. I know that Spring Valley, or Surprise Valley Electric in Paisley, we have a geothermal plant which has invested a lot of money in the necessary things to tap a geothermal resource for utility scale electrical production. And it was quite a bit over cost, but allowing that community to just kind of disperse in those trades and those skill sets that have been in our area, we have vast geothermal resources in Lake County. Just behind my house, behind Charlie's house, 8 miles on the south side, is an identified high anomaly heat flow area that was probably 200+ degree water. But you could do utility scale geothermal development. Now the Surprise Electric Valley comes from California, goes all the way up into North Summer Lake. Midstate takes it up from this side. You get a power plant right out there. I'm not saying that this is anything that's on the table, but we need to be looking forward and developing what the county's already started on. We've got a good head start. The solar panels, there's some mitigation that's going to be done, but the money and the tax revenue and the possible energy that's going to be produced in that time when we don't have power, people are going to pay this 30% tax on these solar panels. They want this money. It's an investment that the financial people really are going for because it has almost zero maintenance. In 20 years, when the panels are starting to produce 30, 40, 50% less as they age, the site is not going to be obsolete. They'll outfit and retrograde, put newer, more high efficiency panels in. They're going to go another 30 years. I think the concerns are real. We need to educate the people on what these solar sites are. Geothermal is a real good opportunity to bring the jobs back that we used to have at the mill. I've heard all kinds of stories of how the timber industry was, and how the town was booming. What's happening with Prineville? They've gone from timber to tires to technology. They have data centers coming in there. The solar sites are producing the power that they need during peak hours, air conditioning, power for all their data centers. We really need to take a hard look at that for jobs. There's another argument here for jobs, and it was included in the outlook with our budget, in that even though the county itself had denied, has opted out, the state has allowed the counties to opt out of the cannabis commerce industry. In 2016, we had $60 million of tax revenue just from that. We're going to have to consider some new forms of revenue They're gonna come and tax your properties. The state needs new revenues. They're gonna tax 20-year-old cars, that's already on the table. You drive a 20-year-old car, it's gonna cost you $1,000 to register that for 5 years in Oregon. The budget needs are gigantic, and they're gonna have to meet them somewhere. Cannabis commerce, and specifically the area of medicinal, where we have an opioid crisis. That moves me right on from jobs to the healthcare, recognizing that there's 10,000 people every single day becoming eligible for Social Security, Medicare. Our aging population is going to need care. What was expressed in the ambulance districts in Lakeview, they're going to have to start levying tax districts because people are not, they can't do it on volunteer. They don't have any money coming in. We have to start paying for this. People, so these are real concerns with bringing in the jobs, using the renewable energy, reconsidering again the possibility of cannabis commerce. We don't want it in our communities, but deny the creativity of the people in our county, and the majority of people who don't work in jobs and can't get hired because they're using, let's say, cannabis instead of opioids, is a growing concern. We really have to re-examine that for I think without acknowledging that that is a good source of new revenue, we're really, it's forsaking our own budgetary concerns, just to reevaluate and look at that again. The healthcare districts, that would be number 2 and 3, is taking care of the people who need those districts, making sure those districts are totally financed, and that the care is administered. We have a good facility up here, and the tax district that was created was very creative. We need to come up with solutions like that to keep these districts funded so that the health care can come in here and remain and improve. We pretty small amount of health sector jobs, but it's like the number 2 employer in the county outside of farm and ag is ambulatory care. We have to recognize that and provide for personnel and skill sets to meet the needs of our aging population, but also keep our kids here. So jobs, our health care, potential cannabis opportunities, commerce opportunities through the cannabis, and to meet the needs of people who don't want to use opioids, who don't want the doctor's cases, overdoses that bring that type of reduction in care and increase in percentages of addiction to prescription medication. The use and misuse of prescription medication kills 3 times more people than cocaine, methamphetamine, and heroin combined. That has to be, we need to educate our population on what that really is. I'm excited about the opportunity. One formal thing, I know we're just past the limit here, but if I may. One of the exciting things for me, and that it should be a growing concern to everybody here, is the 2020 census and the political gerrymandering and redistricting of our state for more representative forms in Salem for the east side, the counties on the east side. As we do that data and we redistrict after the census is taken, anyone who would win this seat would be involved with that. That's an exciting opportunity to really bring some new and frontier politics representation from this side of the hill into Salem and Lake County. And I'd love to be able to do that for Lake County.
Thank you, Michael. Charlie, your opportunity.
Yeah, students of the schools is number 1, and revenue, but there is jobs here, and I know James will agree with me on this. I work for a rancher part-time, and it's the same thing. You're running machinery, and you get guys, but then you get guys that don't want to work. So what are we going to do about that? I mean, we've got to come up with revenues. The other thing James brought up too, which is very important, is housing. I seen, matter of fact, I know a couple people build houses here, $6,500 for a building permit, $1,500 for septic permit. You got $8,000 before you ever break ground. Who in the county has that kind of money? I mean, you got people that born here, grown up here, raised here, don't have that in their back pocket to spit out. I mean, that's fine for Portland and Salem and stuff like that, but we need to work on the infrastructure on all of this. And Also like, same with you get guys coming in, you're trying to get them straightened out, and you got a cannabis building right outside there. I don't mind a cannabis building, but I don't believe they belong in the city limits. There's a lot, do it just like a regular farm. You got out in the country, you got all kinds of areas. It's a way. When you got people that are suffering from drug, alcohol, they don't need to see that. You know, that comes right at it. But yeah, with the seniors, I mean, we've got a lot of aging seniors around here, and we need to come up with programs like myself right now. I volunteer for a lot of seniors and buy parts that they can't afford to fix their cars. For example, I know elderly couple in their 80s, I just got through working on their car. Lots of time in changing gears. Who's got $3,000 that they can just fork out when you're a senior on a fixed income of $700, $800 a month? You know, I mean, I do it out of the kindness of my heart because I'm already getting there. I mean, I'm 60 and I already feel the burdens of arthritis. But we need to look at our whole infrastructure of the community and helping all the seniors and the students. Like I say, the students, they're going to be sitting here in 10, 15, 20 years. They're going to be the future of this county. They're going to be the ones making the decisions. And yeah, I mean, all of us make great points on everything, and I agree with it all. It's, but yeah, we need to definitely work on, and that's the other thing, people in the county too, we need to get more people involved. We can't just depend on the county government to do everything. I mean, we got to get people in the county involved. I mean, even in North Lake County, we've got 1,300 people, and look how many have showed up. I mean, I'm not really trying to throw things at people, but I hear a lot of complaints, but I don't see anybody making efforts to help. I mean, I one time had a guy, I complained about President Reagan one time, and I said, you know, I just can't stand the guy, blah, 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 and the first thing came out of his mouth, well, did you vote? Well, no. There you go. You know, so you gotta get involved and not just with voting, but see where you can volunteer and help the county get things done around here. All of us do that. I do my best to get involved because I can't stand sitting still.
Thank you.
Could I ask a question? I want to make sure I wrote down what the question was, name the 3 most important issues, in your opinion, that affected the North County. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, because that's what I said to the
Okay.
answer. I just want to make sure.
Yeah. That would be it. Gentlemen here, want to everybody
Mark, we didn't give Mark a chance. Mark is not.
Yes,
I'm sorry. It's been such a long time since we started.
know what you do.
One here, and I'd like to run through it quickly. There's already been some expression on this, so I don't think we need to run it through long. Do want to ask, though Ken probably is more familiar with this, regarding the cannabis businesses for Lake County. The only way that that can have anything, any light of day again is another vote, is that correct?
Right.
Okay. So the question that we have is, what is your position on expanding recreational cannabis Congress to include the rest of Lake County, not just Lakeview? Well, I mean, that gives us the base. None of these guys can do anything unless a vote happens that passes that. So, but just quickly, pro or con, I guess, what you say?
Well, I was saying beyond just pro or con.
Okay.
On cannabis, I'll put it this way. When I came back, first off, I enlisted in the United States Marine Corps to go to Vietnam, and they gave me water. When I came back to college, I tried marijuana. It wasn't for me, because it made me lethargic, and I don't like being lethargic. But I recognize that some people, if any one of you wanted to smoke while you're watching the Super Bowl game, just keep it away from kids. Don't come to work stoned. Don't take a break and stone, so forth, so forth, so forth. But as far as recreation, individual, I don't do it myself, but if anybody wants to do it on their own time, that's the personal business. Medical aspect is a different scenario for me. That's supportive of medical. And it goes back, my background is biology. Fish, wildlife, botany, and wildlife. And it's not so much in the idea of identifying plants or anything, but I'm interested in the biochemistry. Of course, I took it in college, and in the chronology, chemistry of everything. God created marijuana just like He created everything else out here. They've got some, like the THC, people are continuously increasing the strains of THC, and that's the part that gets you high. I'm not overly pro on that. I'm not pro at all. But on the medical aspect, and there's one of I like of opioids, synthetic opioids. God did not make synthetic pharmaceutical drugs. I'll give you a little personal thing. When I moved to Lake County, just short of 20 years ago, I lost a loved one. In between mammograms, she got a synthetic pharmaceutical drug for postmenstrual syndrome. It was a drug that just shot an undetected cancer, rocketed, and got past and metastasized before we even knew it was there. Of course, I lost this person. The synthetic, there is a place for synthetic pharmaceuticals, but it can be, our bodies are not adapted to many of them. And the medical aspect, where the synthetic pharmaceuticals can be, properly used, I'm supportive of that. But I also like to have some options for more research on the medical aspect for those individuals that the synthetic doesn't work for. Like, I know two people in Lakeview, older gentlemen. One had a back surgery, it worked perfect. The other had back surgery, and it crippled the person. That person is destined for the rest of his life to take synthetic opioids or something for pain. They better do more research. There's some research on it, and there's a lot of assumptions on it. We need more research. So, like a cactus has thorns, but also has a nice fruit. So let's capitalize on the beneficial part of marijuana. On the, I just need to say that. On the ordinance and voting, when the county submitted an ordinance for cannabis to legalize, they had two parts of that, recreational, manufacturing, and medical processing. I was in favor of separating the ordinance and let people vote between those two, but it got combined as one. So we have an ordinance in the county that manufacturing of any marijuana is prohibited, except in incorporated communities, basically in town of Lakeview. If we wanted to, if the citizens wanted to take that back out, they would need to vote to nullify that ordinance and either accept it, either just nullify it, or accept another ordinance that they can have either recreation or medical, or sustain that ordinance as it is. So it's to change what they're now, you have to notify the access order, and you can leave it as notified. Or you can adopt another ordinance, or two ordinances to address recreational marijuana.
Thank you. That was the clarification I was looking for, but now let's continue on with opinion.
Okay, I want to try and give a simple answer to a complicated question. And this came up, of course, during the 2016 election. I was told by a number of people that I probably lost the election because of my opinions on marijuana issue. And there was something I'll get to in a second about why that was. I don't personally have an addictive personality. I right now have a prescription for an opioid painkiller. I just had a knee replacement a few weeks ago, and I'm weaning myself off of it. I'm taking one a day now to help me sleep, and I won't be taking any after a few more days. But I don't like it. I don't like feeling stoned. I don't like nodding off. I never took the maximum amount. This, again, was within the last few weeks. I don't like it. My drug of choice is Pendleton whiskey, but I can't drink my Pendleton whiskey when I'm taking the opioid pain medication. So I've been withdrawing here for a while. I don't see a need for recreational marijuana, but on the other hand, if somebody wants to do that in their own home, and there's a lot of other issues, where did they get it, why, all that, that's very complicated. But if they want to smoke something, or this latest thing, which I think is ridiculous, is vaping, which don't get started. They want to do that in their own home. I don't really care. As long as they don't commit a crime to get it, as long as they're not out on the street and not driving, it's not my business, really. Medical marijuana is like any other drug. If it helps and is of benefit, and there's proper research and approvals have been done, I'm all for it. The reason that again I was told that I lost, that's my brief opinion on a complicated subject. But the core of the subject is addictive personalities, and that takes a long time to get into that. But the question that I wasn't asked the last time, and this is what they said, if you hadn't said that, I voted for you, was how are you going to vote? I was not asked that, but I said I voted against it. I will vote against it, and I did. And I was told that's why I lost the election. But I can't be anything but honest, that's my opinion.
Thank you. Sherman?
Yeah, my opinion's the same. I mean, if you want to smoke for recreation purposes in your own home, that's your own business. But like I say, with medical, I know some people that regular opiates make them sick, and with the new medical, the way they're changing it, where they're taking the THC out of it and just using the benefits of it, has made a big difference. So, medical-wise, I don't see any problem with it.
Thank you, Dave.
If you're doing it in your own home, I can't tell you how to live your life. As a commissioner, I'm supposed to follow what the people want. So if the people vote against it, that's what it has to be. If you are impacting the lives of children, I'm avidly opposed to it. My own personal opinion is, as I don't approve of marijuana, especially with the THC in it. Medically, I think it serves a lot of purposes. I think it needs to be explored more. I think scientifically they're finding more and more uses for marijuana. It is a plant that God created. He put it here for a reason, so I think it may have some purposes, but I think it's abused. And I think that needs to be acknowledged. Am I happy about seeing it in our community? Absolutely not. I see the impact that it has on children. I see the impact that it has on adults. And like Bruce was saying, the addictive personality is a key component of that. It affects some people differently, but when you start having your marijuana dispensaries simply for the purposes of bringing in money, and you're marketing brownies and cookies and things like that looks to me like you're marketing it for children. And I don't approve of that. I haven't seen too much of that, but the point is I don't want to see anyone go down that road, and it can be a gateway drug to those who have an addictive personality, and it opens up a much bigger doorway. We have issues down there in Lakeview, and here in Christmas Valley, and other places in Lake County. It's not just marijuana anymore. It's meth, and it's cocaine. It's a much bigger issue with drugs rather than just marijuana. Marijuana is a very small component of the issue that we have with controlled substances.
Okay, Michael?
Yes, in a sense, I'm definitely for the businesses and the use. I think the state legislature put counties in a precarious position by allowing them to opt out, but the opt-out clause itself is inconsistent with Oregon's constitution regarding immunities and privileges enjoyed by citizens in all parts of the state. On that basis, I'm completely opposed to any type of option for opting out. Having said that, Lake County itself did put itself in quite a position, didn't it, when it allowed it in Lakeview, where the concentration of the people is, but out here where there isn't, we have to go to Deschutes for our medical stuff. We have to go to Klamath. You're putting people on the road that unnecessarily don't have to be on the road. People don't want to have to travel that far for their. I know that the medical part of the side was never supposed to be included in the opt-out option. It was addressing, Measure 91 addressed commercial cannabis, recreational cannabis, licensing of the 5 businesses involving recreational cannabis. What's happened since that's been passed? The medical processing sites and ability and availability of the patients has dropped down because people are pouring their product into the markets. The legislator has been Oregon's legislature has been very aware of this. And they've written into the rules that the medical community can now sell their product into the rec market because and also be blocked from selling their stuff into the rec market based on market conditions. Here in Lake County, we should be able to process medical cannabis. We need the oils, the brownies and the cookies that come out here because the medical industry itself, the AMA, the FDA will never ever endorse any kind of smoking or vaping in any way ever, under any circumstance. That's why people need to put it in their cookies and their food. They put just tiny little bits in there, and there's enough science coming out now, we don't have the time to go into it, that it is being supported, not only with science and studies, but in the testimonies of people who are using it. By having it available in your foods, it requires a much higher level of quantity. People smoke it because it's the quickest way to ingest it and get the effects into your body. But because of medical reasons, we don't smoke it, right? So you have to get it into the oils. So you put it into your food. That requires a much higher level of sheer product. That part of the medical community, we have to go outside of the county for, and we can go into many different things, but again, for the businesses and for the use, but most importantly for the medical community. And I think that if 2 commissioners said yay on allowing the medical part of this, you could get people to at least process the oils here in Lake County. There's not going to be any revenue sharing from the medical community, okay, but the people will be able to get their product in Lake County. And there are a number of people in the north end who actually depend on that and won't go to the medicines or pharmaceuticals. So I'm opposed to it on a constitutional level, the opt-out. The legislator put the counties in a very difficult position because legally it's not constitutional. It's not consistent with immunities and privileges, and the medical people are really falling out to the rec market. So those are my basis for the positions that I take, and I'm always willing to listen. But I have my own, I'm not going to bore you with it, with a broken femur and traction for 5 days. Miraculous medicinal marijuana story, throwing up from opium, little bit of marijuana came in, my girlfriend brought it to me. All of a sudden I was able to eat. Because I was eating, now I was oxygenating. Because I was oxygenating, I could get my surgery. It's a true miracle story. I left after a major accident 2 years ago running for state. And I didn't have the awareness that I needed to go to the pharmacy to get my medicines for pain when I left the hospital. So for the first 30 days with 5 broken ribs, collapsed lungs, punctured lungs, I was using cannabis concentrates. I couldn't afford that anymore. So I got the Oregon Health Plan and I got the opioids, and I swear just now, 2 years since that, I took it for 30 days. My digestive tract is only now getting back on track. I took opioids for 30 days. It ruined me. It really did. And I don't see how people can use that stuff for recreation, but they do, and they use it for pain relief and stress relief. I want to yield back any time to the next candidate. I'm for the businesses and for the use, not just because I've used it myself, but because I see it value for the people who use it medicinally. And we need to get the processing, the medical processing allowed, permitted back in here so we don't have to go into shoots for at least that one thing. I really believe that's probably my biggest argument, is that the medical processor should be allowed to operate inside the county.
Thank you. Mark?
I'm not gonna say my opinion because my opinion shouldn't matter. It was the vote of the people. They voted at 70 to 30. Done deal. Shouldn't matter what my opinion is. I disagree with him in one sense that our county should have our own voice. And just because it's the state says we should be able to do it, I don't agree with that. I think we should have our own voice and what the voice of the people of Lake County is. My opinion shouldn't matter as a leader in the county. If the county votes 70 to 30 for marijuana, that's it. That's how it is. And my opinion shouldn't matter. And so it's pretty simple for me.
Thank you. I've got a number of solar questions here. So, as the candidates answer the next question, I'm going to go study through here and see if I can get this down to a couple of questions that we can get out so we can get out of here in reasonable time. Let's see. This question is for Mr. Kastner and Mr. Albertson. What are your thoughts on prioritizing budget discretionary funds?
Any of us go first?
Go ahead.
That's been my emphasis when I first came on, is, okay, discretionary funds. We get a lot of funds that comes in that is tied to specific projects. Health, mental health, public health, road department, all those are dedicated funds. Property tax coming in has some discretionary functions. Lottery funds for economic development coming in has some discretion on how we spend it. Most of the property tax goes to county functions, staff, and et cetera, but that's kind of where the discretionary funds lies, is in the property tax and the lottery funds we get for economic development. My emphasis being that we need to have a vision, and Bill brought up one of our gentlemen here, we need to have a vision of what we need to achieve and work for in the future. And if we don't start setting funds aside to accomplish our future goals, then we just hand it out and spend money indiscriminately, you might say. I'll use one little example. The annex here, the county annex, ever since it's been on, I've always had a vision that we need a better annex. That is an old house with the organization layout is not really conducive. If we would, just as an example, there's other examples of prioritization, but if we just set aside some money each year, there's grants out there to build a government facility. You just need to make a 20% match. 5 years ago, proposed to the fellow commissioners that we start setting aside money so that we can fulfill that grant match. And we started with, must have caught them off guard because they had we did. But 1 year they set aside 25, we set aside 25,000. Next year, that was done away with, and we put 47,000 or thereabouts into replenishing the outside of the building. But when it comes down to the north and the south, I think the northern part of the community deserves a respectable government center also.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And within that government center, we can have, and I was talking to the circuit judge last week, we had actually a statement about we need to get a courtroom, not for the judge to come up here, but television, so that when either one of you get a speeding ticket that you want to contest, which brought over, you have to drive 2 hours, take off your work, go down, and sometimes they have it tossed out, so you turn around and come back. If we have a video, a lot of folks up here could utilize that system. And we have a nice facility up here that people can be proud of, the county can be proud of, and have it designed so it has both that function. Right now, we have mental health in there, and the acoustic is very poor. We're subject to HIPAA violations. You got the sheriff over here, people coming in mental health, they don't want to walk past the sheriff. I'm just saying, if we have a nice facility up here, we need a product for the county. That's just one example. That's been my emphasis for years, to get a new annex up here. But many other things we need to prioritize because we don't. But I hold it to the future Board of Commissioners to prioritize, discretionary funds.
Okay, Mark, you want to read the question again?
Yes, please.
Your thoughts on prioritizing budget discretionary funds.
I know that the total budget is $41 million, and that's counting the PILTs, all the federal money, federal tax, fuel tax money, that's everything. There's $22 million that's allocated already in the county, and that's total amount of money. Speaking of North Lake County, since we're in the North Lake Forum, Commissioner Kestner's right on the annex. I spoke with Tom Rourke, Deputy Tom Rourke, Rachel Benine, Jason Raines. They're all in a room, one little tiny room. I meet with mental health every week. Those gals share 2 little rooms. They poured money into the courthouse in Lakeview and didn't do it here. That's going to change. One of the things that we want to do, what I personally would like to do, is build a conference room. So, like James said, we spoke earlier about being able to come up and have commissioner meetings a couple times a week, once a month, whatever we want to do. But like James living in Summer Lake, it would be ridiculous for him to go to Lakeview all the time. And we have enough technology where James can just pop over the hill. I could come up a couple times a week. Whatever commissioners here can come up. Another problem is we have 3 deputies up here, and that's half, they report half the calls of all of Lake County are from North Lake. Half the calls with 3 deputies. It's dangerous. I was talking to Deputy Rachel Benine the other day, and she was called out at 10 o'clock at night by herself on an elude. She didn't realize there was 2 men in the vehicle. We have a woman deputy in the pitch black, hours away from backup. We cannot put our people's lives in jeopardy any longer. Another thing, your guys' EMS. We need to work on EMS so you guys have an ambulance right here in town to take care of you guys, to get you to the hospital, because we know what it's like. You know, living on the west side, I'm not as far out as you guys are, but it takes the ambulance from town, if somebody responds, at least 45 minutes to get there. If you have a trauma situation, you don't have 45 minutes. We have to train the people in trauma, the EMTs up here, and maybe even have a paid EMT. So we have somebody here to keep you guys from dying. It's serious. it's things that we need to allocate the money for. And, I'm all game for that. And so that's where I would start with part of it, so.
Could I just add one little piece on the end of what Mark just said? One thing, he just spoke about the EMS group and stuff, you know, we need these guys to be trained. I don't know how many of you are familiar with our EMS guys, but there's not a whole lot of young guys on our EMS groups. Most of them are
Women.
either retired already.
Most of them are women.
Yes, absolutely. And down in Lakeview, we struggle with that, and we need to find more young people that are willing to step up. It's a big job, it's a big commitment, but it would be a heck of a lot easier on the people that we do have if we were able to get a few more people. And being that I'm actually a fairly young guy, I know a bunch of young guys that I've been trying to push towards getting on these groups for a while. We've got a young girl that's working on the EMS group down here, you know, volunteering. We need more young blood in those groups and helping with those things, because it's eventually the other guys are just going to go away, and they need to learn from the people that are there right now.
And to add on to what James is saying, the training is pathetic that we have right now. And it's just not in North Lake County, it's everywhere in the county. If we can get people trained to help each other out in those situations, I think would be huge. And I think we could do it fairly cheap, especially with the hospital or, you know, other medical outfits donating their time to training people. So.
And I'd like to add a little bit also on this discussion, unless,
I just can use an example for just what you're talking about. Last year, an individual who lived in Silver Lake needed to be medevaced out. They brought him up to the airport. The winds were too high to get a chopper in here, so they tried to bring fixed wing in. And the other thing I want to bring up is there was 1.5 feet of snow on the runway, so they couldn't bring the fixed wing in. So he sat in an ambulance for an hour and a half. When they finally decided the only way they get him to the hospital is drive him. So 3.5 hours in there, and he was in critical condition. He could have died within that amount of time. So, yeah, EMS is very important.
but add a little bit, I use the annex because that's been a passion of mine ever since I've been on. Other discretionary things that the county has is to spend, how much of this discretionary is not going to solve all the problems? I mean, you have to pay other, other people's salaries and everything else, but what you have on things that the county is ultimately responsible for. We are ultimately responsible for sheriff department, which is understaffed. If we staff adequately, then Rachel probably would not have been out there by herself. We are ultimately responsible for EMS. We should be contributing some money to help on the training of those organizations. They are all pretty much voluntary organizations, and we haven't put a dime for it, and that we are responsible for that. I've known that from the first year I was on commission. Other things, I mean, there's just a whole lot of things that the county is ultimately responsible for that people don't realize, that we are meeting our own obligations first with our discretionary funds, because it goes out to the people in those organizations.
I agree with you on, especially with that annex, like you say, it's well. We have so many people coming up here. You got the veterans, people come up here to help stuff, and the buildings wore out. I mean, it's just not feasible for what it needs to be. Really, so.
Search and rescue. There's so many things that the county doesn't realize that they're responsible for.
Yeah.
We need to have some obligation to do that.
Nobody asked me quick, Tim and the Nichols. You know, the county couldn't do a lot of things without volunteers. I mean, the county, I've been in search and rescue now for going on 18 years. I have provided air support to the sheriff for a lot of things for nearly that long. And so without volunteers, search and rescue are all volunteer. Most of the EMS in the county, I think Ken just said, is volunteer. They also do their own fundraising to raise money for equipment for ambulances and things like that. The issue, for instance, of the runway not being plowed, believe me, I've flown off of snowy runways. I understand they couldn't get in here, but there is not enough money to pay for a separate county manager or a separate hangar building for equipment up there, or separate plows up there to keep this runway plowed. So I mean, it's just something, there's just not enough money to go around. That's why we depend so heavily on volunteers.
Thank you. Real quick, before we get away from the county annex, as you guys are just mentioning it, I do have a question for Michael Stepner and Charlie Brown. What is your plan for the county's annex building here in North Lake County, and funding is necessary? You guys have any comments on that?
Like Ken was saying, it's been an ongoing battle for several years. We've had the money close to it, and then it's diverted somewhere else. It needs to be replaced. I mean, flat out needs. I mean, you can sit there and try to remodel all you want, try to make more room here and there. I mean, you've got the deputies crammed into one room. I've been in there quite a few times, and then, you know, like Mark said, you get the mental health in there. I mean, it's atrocious. You've got two people trying to talk to other people, and it's just garbage. I mean, the place is just falling apart.
It doesn't meet the need.
No,
What is his plan? I haven't heard what your plan is.
Plan is to, I would say, like Kim was saying, you get 20% of that money put aside, and grant will cover the rest of it. The building needs to be replaced. It needs to be flat out tore down, a larger building put in there for these different departments in there. And then you need a camera system where, like now, when I need to make an appointment, instead of me driving clear to Portland, I can talk to the VA through my laptop. Well, we can do that at the annex, you know, like I say, instead of, in the wintertime, who's going to want to drive, you know, 200 and something miles round trip, and then everyone knows the weather changes around here hourly, so it might be nice going down, you may hit a blizzard coming back.
Or it's much colder and you're on the sheet ice.
I went down with Ron to Lakeview here about, what was it, 3 weeks ago, and we had snow blowing across the road. You know, I mean, you had to slow down on the corners that you didn't even think were slick. So it's dangerous.
To be quite candid, I never had a plan. I didn't know there was any allotment. I certainly knew there was a need. I don't go in there for the sheriff very often. I haven't gone in there for the other services, but I have gone in there for veteran services. And John worked in a real small shop, and I know that everybody else does in there too. To address the annex situation, I just used this surprise question. Someone dropped on me at a job interview once. They said, if you had to upgrade the phone system at the Pentagon, how would you do it? Well, I wouldn't look at that as any different as any other project, regardless of the size. I say, what are the needs? What do you have? How much time and money are you willing to spend? How much can you spend? Those are the parameters that you can apply generally to about any project. So as far as the plan for the annex, officially for the record, I didn't know we were planning to upgrade. But extensive consultation, joint cooperation for the community, shared benefits as we complete those types of projects. Where are we going to come up with that type of money for the needs that we have? That would be a very general way to answer the question. I didn't know we were going to expand the thing. I thought they were going to try to make do for the next 20 years. I don't know. So that just to be brief, yield back anytime.
I'll make one more comment about on the annex too. So we're talking, we've got EMTs that need to be trained, and you know, the fire department and all that. You can't cram everybody everybody in there all at once all the time trying to train. So having an extra room in the annex for, you know, the needs. I mean, you look at the county building down there in Lakeview, I mean, that thing's just humongous. And they got all kinds of room. There's even space down in the basement that's, you know, not really being used as much as I think it would be if we had something like that here. I'm not saying build a big county, you know, but the annex needs to be where it can benefit North Lake County all the way around.
Very good. I think the original question was something to the effect of how are priorities set for the discretionary money? I think that was the question. Is that correct?
Oh, that was it.
And so we've had good discussions on a whole bunch of different topics, but we haven't talked about, nobody's talked about, Ken did actually brought it up with the one issue of the annex, and you brought that up, is how do you have far more good projects and you have money to fund those projects. And so how do you set the priorities, you know, for those projects? And one method, which was mentioned, was 20% matching funds. Okay, that may be fine for that. Well, how do you come up with the money and how do you compare the need for that versus the need for better training for EMS versus the need for plowing of the runway? That's the question, I think, is what's the process for setting those priorities? I don't have the answer because I don't know, but I think
But that's the question.
Yes, I
Bring
think so.
that when you're there.
Is to identify all the possibilities that there's not enough money.
Right.
So as Bruce was saying, if you lay well,
And they're just like with,
the printing press in the courthouse is broken.
You know where to be.
But you had to lay it out and then you had to have a group that comes.
So it's not a high enough priority to replace the press?
That is #1 problem.
Okay, so now, on solar, I'm gonna run through a few of these here, and then you guys can ask me when it's your turn, if you need to repeat anything. We've got questions regarding how the taxation on solar farms differs between apparently under 350 or over 350. How are they taxed?
350 what?
I'm sorry?
350 what?
Acres?
Oh, thank you.
It's actually 321.
320, okay, so, okay. And, let's see, how is that tax money distributed by the state and county? And then I have, and that one was a general question, that was a general question set to all of you. And then, let me catch, okay, this one's for Bruce and James. Do you know how many solar projects are filed for Lake County and how many acres are involved with the project?
Are you asking that now?
Yeah, the one.
I wasn't sure which was coming first.
If you want to answer the 320 acre part as well, if you have any.
That one I can answer easily, I don't know.
Okay.
That's a detail. I have lots of opinions on solar projects. I've been involved to some extent, and I'll share my opinions if I'm asked. But as far as how many, I've seen the number there's a fairly lengthy table of things under consideration for all over the county for solar projects, and I don't remember the number, but it's probably, it fills up a sheet of paper to my recollection. The one that actually is under active consideration now, there's several actually, one near the airport, and then this, what's it, Blue Marmot, something like that. And I have an issue with that one, which is, I'm not sure that's one project at all. It's a mishmash spread all over in the Goosewood Valley. My impression, and this may be incorrect, and I will stand corrected if I'm wrong, my impression is that somehow behind the scenes, a bunch of people put that together into one project rather than the 5 or 6 or 7, however many it is, because that way the state gets more involved and forcing it through to be approved. And some of the smaller, or some of the projects, I think, would not be approved according to current state rules, ordinances, et cetera, I've read them, if they were considered on their own. But they're all now lumped together. Now, if that impression of what's going on is incorrect, please somebody enlighten me.
Thank you. James?
Sure. Actually, I was just pulling up some news on that. Regarding Blue Marmot, actually, which is 5,100 acres down there in Lakeview, and it's spread into multiple areas. They actually, Blue Marmot put in a request to temporarily suspend the review pending the submission and amended for a later date, the issuance of the project order. So they've actually stopped a lot of the process currently, as of yesterday.
That date is on hold.
As of right now, it's on hold. It's not necessarily gone, but I think one of the reasons is because I think Blue Marmot is completely unprepared. I don't think they're a new company. They've never really done any solar in Oregon before. They're in way over their head. They're out of California, and they're trying to get into the solar area field. But they're in way over their head. Their projects down there is 5,100 acres, and they said that they would be able to produce 60 megawatts with 5,100 acres. Yet, I mean, compared to the solar project up here, which is due to produce a lot more, and it's not a whole lot bigger. There's another one down in California that's half the size, 2,500 acres, and it's set to produce 350 megawatts. So it's half the size, but it's going to produce way more. And I think Blue Marmot's just kind of behind the times on a lot of the technology, and so they're really just kind of playing in the field right now and putting feelers out to try and figure things out. So I think they've halted that as of yesterday, and that's the news so far on Blue Marmot. The other one is here in North Lake County. That's about 7,000 acres, multiple different pieces of land. Is that the sum of the question?
I believe that.
It was just asking us how big it was? It was just asking what the acreage was?
How many projects and how much acreage is?
Well, to my knowledge, I'm only aware of 2 companies that are actually doing the projects, which is Blue Marmot and Obsidian. And Obsidian is managing the one up here.
We also have the Fort Rock South Solar.
Yes,
which is
yes.
At a meeting opposite us and Lakeview this evening. They're discussing that this evening.
Yes, they are.
Okay, let's see here. I have one. This one for Mark and Michael. Is your position regarding the Obsidian 600 megawatt solar project favorable or unfavorable?
Obsidian up here.
The Obsidian 600 megawatt solar project, is your position favorable to that project or unfavorable?
I've been more on the Blue Marmot project because I live right next door to it. On the Obsidian one, the reason it's different for me is the Obsidian one, the Blue Marmot one is built on irrigated farmland right below my house. Obsidian is a little different story, but the problems I have with the solar project are this. For one, the state has no idea yet on what or how they're going to finance it. They don't know how it's going to be allocated. It's really muddy water. I'm for solar energy, but I'm also pro use of your own land with the aspect of if it's not a detriment to your neighbor. And so that's where I stand on the Obsidian.
And Michael?
On the site specific here to Obsidian, we're looking at 6,000 to 7,000 acres of solar panel development. I've walked in and amongst the solar panels installing these things and putting the forklifts in. My personal position is that I'm totally favorable. The people have to go outside of the local area. They're going to get hooked up with these contractors, NECA contractors that are building these sites. But the state of Oregon requires that electricians handle the glass and install this stuff. It's not like they can bring in cheap labor. So in order to get tied into these labor pools and skill sets, you have to go to Eugene or to Central Point to tie into the building trades. Outside of them bringing something local out here to make local citizens who want employment in these solar sites available for a labor pool, that's something that has to be developed. I'm favorable for the sites for a couple of reasons. Number one, of the jobs they'll bring not only to the people who will work here, as I mentioned, I've been working in it, best jobs I've had in the last 12 years with the solar panels, and I'm essentially picking up trash. And I'm not even doing electrical work, so I'm favorable on the solar panels for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's going to bring jobs. If you have a 600 megawatt site out here, for 2 or 3 years, you're going to have an overload on the community. Those things will need to be mitigated. There are genuine, realistic concerns of people who are around here that these concerns need to be heard. I have a siting process chart on the table over there that people should grab a copy of if they don't have a copy already. Department of Energy has come in and they've laid it out. They're doing much better than they did 8 years ago when they tried to come in here with the wild, wild west days of the Pet Sea. But I think the opportunities not only for the developing the skill sets in the area, our local apprenticeship kids who want to, young people who want to get involved in skilled labor right now have a real opportunity in the north end to tap into the building trades, Oregon State building trades, and learn some skill sets, mechanical, electrical, and I think there's some general labor stuff there. But I'm for it for those couple of reasons. Also, the increased property tax assessment that will come to the county in various ways that I got a chance to talk with Ken about. There's a whole lot of questions that need to be answered to the public. I can dispel one of them that was brought up here about the ambient temperature maybe not allowing the air around the fields to, get dew point. Might be the case for 20 minutes after the sun goes down, but these panels release their energy and dew settles on them, so you're going to be able to feel your hay. Okay, small, simple questions like that can be answered. Real mitigation that have genuine concerns for this construction company. Where are these people going to sleep? How are they going to eat? Are they going to be crashing with the trailers on my property? I know Rock Forks Park doesn't even have close to the capacity, but they're probably the closest trailer park outside the restaurant right there. And they need to triple, quadruple the power inputs for man cams. Like, he's familiar with what happened on the Ruby pipeline. Those things bring in hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars of industry into the county, into the north end here. I think we need to take advantage of that, direct some of those funds back into renewable energy, geothermal. It's getting off topic, but we need to develop that resource in the North Lake. Have the temperature in the ground, and that we really need to put some focus on that. So, favorable and favorable.
Can I go ahead and
a little more.
Can I go ahead and say one more
You want to
thing?
finish up?
Yeah. So, I'm with Michael as far as the jobs and what it can do for our economy here. But I want to be wise. I want to be very wise on how we take care of this. Could it benefit all of us? Yes. Could it hurt a bunch of us? Yes. The problem I have with the solar is, and I'll answer the very first question you said, was once it hits 320 acres, the Oregon Department of Energy takes jurisdiction. I have a problem with that for this reason. We have, Lake County's got to abide by the same laws as the state of Oregon. We also have to obey the same planning laws as the state of Oregon. Governor Brown made an initiative where we all have to have 50% renewable energy by 2037 or whatever. And so she's starting to shove this down the throat of Oregon Department of Energy. Oregon Department of Energy, on their advisory council, has employees of the solar companies on there. Lake County is reduced, the Lake County Commissioners and the Lake County Planning is reduced to an advisory board only. We lose all power of anything. I want to be really careful when we start poking that bear, because it could affect all of us. Do I want solar to help us out and quit using foreign oil? Yes, of course. But we got to do it wisely. Do I want the people of Lake County to prosper? Of course. But we have to do it wisely. We can't destroy one home to build another. We can't destroy one business to build another. It does no good for us to hire somebody in here when it destroys 4 or 5 mom and pop businesses that already exist. We have to do things wisely.
What businesses are in jeopardy of destruction by the solar project, if you don't mind my asking?
I'm not saying any business would be of the solar project itself,
Oh, I misunderstood you.
but what I was thinking, and I got off course and I apologize. Say we had a Walmart. We'll just use it for come in somewhere. We lose 4 or 5 businesses that employed the same amount of people. Did it really help? And I know that's way out there, but what I'm saying is that I want to be able to take care of the whole county. I'm not against solar. I'm against the state forcing jurisdiction on local government. I want to be able to have a voice. You don't see solar companies popping up in Western Oregon.
That's for sure.
You don't see them on their farmland because they have a bigger voice. Let's be wise. That's all I'm saying. I'm not against solar, but on the other hand, I'm pro-people, and I want to help all of us. So let's just do it wisely. And right now, the state does not even have a clue what they're going to do as far as allocating money for these projects. There's also the solar companies that went from $7,000 per kilowatt hour. Now they have their own lobbyists in state government that are trying to bring it down to $4,000 per kilowatt. They're already biting the end off the carrot.
Could you further elaborate on that, what that statute is?
We all seem to be confused. It should be 7,000 to 4,000.
Okay, so
Is that?
this is how the solar companies would pay the tax. Is 7,000 per kilowatt.
Oh, based on their total capacity?
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Answer the question?
And then now they're wanting to reduce it to 4,000 per kilowatt per capacity.
So this
I
is,
think you gotta have a megawatt, you can't.
this is,
Make one, sorry.
okay, so this is the amount they're taxing
Sorry, that makes more sense.
per year, per megawatt of potential capacity.
Right.
Okay.
And so the solar companies are already saying, we went from $7,000 to start with, now we're bringing it down to 4. They're trying to do that. And so let's just be wise. All of this stuff is still really muddy water, and there's not a simple solution.
What's standard? Other places, big developments in other places, what's the standard paid per megawatt to the municipality or the state?
It's coming down. It's coming down, is all I know. Like Blue
It's
Marvin.
an interesting statistic.
Blue Marvin, going back to them because I know a little bit more about them because of being neighbors. Blue Marvin is a wind company. This is Blue Marvin number 10. And they're wanting to become a solar company, Blue Marvin number 10, when they've been a wind company all this time. And like James was saying, you know,
Oh, wind.
Yeah, wind.
Oh.
Wind. Yeah.
I thought you were saying wind, I was gonna say, how's wind resorts?
They're just new to solar, basically.
So I'll,
They're trying to
put it
cross-
shortly, let's just be wise and figure this out to benefit everyone. So,
Now, I did have another question here for yourself and Mr. Kestner. If solar project moves forward, what option for taxation would you support? I think you just discussed some of that. Would you like to add anything more to what you just said?
I mean, like I said, the state doesn't even know what they're gonna do as far as the belt or the SIP programs. We don't know any of that yet, for sure.
Yeah? You-
Back to the tax,
Yeah,
on the 7,000 per megawatt, that the solar, well, first off, there's property tax assessed on the equipment. And traditionally, they have gone to the Department of Revenue on a large project, and they make the assessment on the value of the equipment, which depreciate quickly. And then Department of Revenue would turn around and assess on the revenue. So the solar companies said, it's hard to get investors when we don't know where the tax really is. So I think it's 2015, the solar company, Obsidian was one of them, got the legislative body to pass an option called PILT, payment in lieu of taxes. So instead of the taxation underlaying like this, there's an option to pay $7,000 per megawatt for 15 years, I think it is. So that gives the investors, some stability of what it's going to be. Now, with that $7,000 per megawatt, it was given to the counties as an option. The county commissioners could say, no, we want the traditional taxation by the Department of Revenue that goes like this, because we think we might get more out here. Or we could choose to go with the 7,000 to ensure that the project goes. And I think we'll probably get a little bit less at the end, but at least it encourages solar, so forth. And as Mark said, with the development of the solar panels and the efficiencies, there's a fluctuation there that the solar industry would like to reduce that 7 down to 4,000. That hasn't been done, but that it is in the works as a proposal. That's one taxation process. Another taxation process, to the current question, is the county designated the whole county as a renewable energy enterprise zone, which gives the county commissioners an option to negotiate with the company to allow 3 years tax abatement and provide a community service fee. After the 3 years, then it goes back to whatever taxation, property tax, the standard one or the 7,000 per megawatt. But with that community service fee, that would come to the county, and it would be revenue discretionary, property tax. The third option of taxation is the Department of Oregon Business Strategic Investment Program, SIP. It allows the county to negotiate with the company to have some community service fee. Let's say the taxes, the overall taxes would be this much. We could forgive some of the taxes, a percentage. I'm not real good with numbers on that. I'll leave that up to our treasurer. That we could use the service fee, and the rest of it would go into the taxing, either 7,000 or the standard assessment. With that, the county would also be required to turn to the taxing districts and have an agreement with them on how that community service fee is expended. Actually, I kind of like that aspect because it would keep it locally. For instance, if we went with the renewable energy enterprise zone where just the county and the company get 3 years community service fee, that just goes to the county, and the county can do whatever we wish with it in the place across the with the SIP, that's 15 years, and that part of the taxation, remember, most of the tax still goes to the county, and we distribute it to the taxing districts. But we have the percentage there, community service fee, that we would have an agreement with the taxing district. That's the health clinic, the library, OSU extension, CCO, with the COCC if it's going on, and so forth. But it would ensure that the taxes of that community service fee would go to the area represented by the effectively solar. In other words, it would not go to Thomas Creek Fire District because they're not affected. So it's basically a standard taxation with a variation of the HILT 7,000. There's a renewable energy enterprise zone, which has got 3 years of community service fee that comes to the county, and then goes back, the other years goes back to the standard taxation. Or the SIP, where it's 15 years, we can take some community service fee in an agreement with the local taxing districts. And the rest of that money would go into the distribution of taxes back to the districts. So it's kind of 3 options there.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question,
Did you have something to add?
please?
You have something to add?
Yes,
What's that?
isn't it true that 25% of the assessed value or taxing value goes to the state first? Of any value that we get in taxes?
On the SIP or on the,
Just say that they tax this solar side at $4 million in taxes. The state would take 25% of that before it came down to the taxing districts to be distributed.
for that said, I haven't researched it. I need to thank you for bringing it up. Would anybody else have a knowledge of that 25%? I haven't researched that.
Thank you. Okay, Michael, we want to pick on you here.
Okay.
Since we're on renewables, how about a little more on the biomass stuff? Questions, is this all going, do you know if this is all going to be used for the jet fuel? Is it going to be strictly for the military, government, or what on that? And what will it be made from? Do you know that?
I'm just getting a couple notes here from military and uses. I could say that the Red Rock Biofuels plant is contracted with something for the Department of Defense. It's not like a contractor has to come in here and is going to be developing a site that has to turn a profit. This is the Department of Defense to diversify their energy portfolio, incorporating drop-in biofuels that they can put in for aviation and marine diesel. That's for the Navy. I don't look too much in what the Army's going to do, but the contract with Red Rock Biofuels is from and funded by Department of the Defense to diversify their fuel portfolio and increase their availability of biofuels. What's it made from? It's made from the woody waste mass. We'll probably get some stuff from the plant. The process that they're using there is based upon the demands of the plant itself, spec'd out by, this is how many, I think it's more than 100,000 gallons of production per day for the site, that they have to be able to use a certain specific process which is efficient. Other processes will be involved with a lower volume, but it doesn't meet the needs of the Defense Department. That's why the size of the facility is being chosen. Its location, Lakeview, was picked out of a portfolio around the nation in 100 miles radius regarding the woody materials used to, and I'm not familiar with the process. It's a 120-page thing from MIT that goes into the very specific process of turning woody waste material into jet fuel. That's new to me. And I'll confess to everyone in the room that for the longest time I thought the Red Rock Biofuels was going to keep producing electricity. Okay, I wasn't paying attention, close enough attention, but after I got into it, 690 pages, or 600 plus pages of Defense Department money, plan to diversify and create a worldwide portfolio of biofuel refineries, of which Lakeview has been chosen as a target because it meets the criteria for the fuel demands and access to the woody, pulpy products. I think it's a win-win. People don't have to come in and make money on this project, and I think Lakeview will see a significant uptick in not only their economy, but in infrastructure and taxable assessments that will, for a long term, create jobs and further increase revenue in the county. It's exactly what we need right now.
Thank you. Mr. Chester, now, these guys might know, but I don't think the rest of us do. No, I think you do. As a commissioner, what committees, local and state, are you involved in?
I think fair number. I've been involved with the state that has since concluded, but still going on. But the state was basically, and that was pretty intense during the time. When the Fish and Wildlife Service said the grouse is warranted for listing, they named 2 items for listing: loss of habitat and lack of jurisdiction or control. So the state created the sage-grouse to come up with the sage-grouse plan, and that was a component to keep the sage-grouse from being listed. I've been on 2 different smoke committees. One is Wood Smoke Committee that concluded different ways to get communities such as Lakeview, which is keeping on non-payment. The other one, most recently, was Oregon Department of Forestry and DEQ on prescribed burning smoke. Right now, there's so many constraints on the prescribed burning that private land and agencies cannot really prescribed burn, which is essential to kind of make a healthy forest so we don't have catastrophic fires. Been on Early Learning Council Committee, and again, this goes with the CC&F, Commission on Children and Family. Brad Winters was the liaison for many years on that. When that went away, they instituted the early learning, and I was the one that took that on. That had many, and is still going different meetings out of state, not out of state, out of county. But that goes back, I thought it was just something else. Brad and Dan wasn't interested, so I think on what they done. And I thought, just another thing on my chart. But actually, I got really engrossed in early learning because that takes our kids from prenatal to 5 years, which is the most formative years of our kids. That age bracket sets a path, the compass bearing for those kids thereafter. And I mentioned earlier very much on kids because for their sake and the future. I can't think of all the committees anymore. But one of the most recent one that some people got some questions on is cybersecurity. The governor has created this cybersecurity advisory council. Anybody know what cybersecurity is?
Yes.
Yeah. It's protection of your digital information. You get on cell phone and send some messages out, it's out there. Get on your computer, if your tax, how many of you have a tax accountant that does your taxes for you? You give them all the data on your finances, your Social Security, the whole works, and your tax accountant sends it in electronically to the Department of Revenue. It's out there. All of us think of hacking. We hear about the Russians and the Chinese hacking our big businesses and all this. It's going on right here in Christmas Valley. Anything you send out is accessible to somebody because they are, a lot of these hackers are individuals who they're just computer nerds. I'm not a computer nerd. Some of you could say I'm a nerd. But they just take the data, they catch us it here or there, and then they file it away in different trunks of information, and they mean no harm, but what do they do with it? They sell it to somebody that has an interest in it. And somebody who has an interest in it would pay for that data because they can use it to hack into your information and maybe intercept your tax return, or better yet, there's one company, I forgot the name, went bankrupt overnight because somebody got in and took all the money out of the bank account. So hacking is, there's scam phone calls, they kind of do the same. But the Association of Oregon Counties
Yes.
asked a representative commissioner from Eastern Oregon to be on this council. And guess how many county commissioners raised their hands? Well, initially, no, I was resistant. But I know the importance of it, but I don't know the details of cyber security. So it's an education, so I volunteer to be on it. They meet once. I thought it's just going to be long enough for them to set up, give a council. It's ongoing, so I'm going to step off after I learn about it. But it's the gain, for me to gain enough information, because what goes on in a mom and pop store can be hacked. What goes on in the county courthouse can be hacked. Now, yes, we have a computer company that manages our security, but do any of us commissioners know how to monitor our company that is monitoring us? And when the Department of Personnel, Office of Personnel Management can be hacked, they had somebody out there got my information, got my Social Security. I work for the federal government. They got my Social Security number, they got my mother's maiden name, they got everything. So this is one that is kind of was boring and is way over my head, but I'm gaining incrementally on the importance. And this counselor, after they kind of get it set up, the intent for me on Eastern Oregon is to be able to distribute, in layman terms, back to the community, whether it's any of your guys' business, your tax accountant, or whoever, to educate more so the general public on the importance of cybersecurity. You need to find somebody who, you can go out and get somebody to do your computer networking and all that, but do they know anything truly about how to prevent somebody from hacking into it? It's not foolproof, but that subject is on such a steep rise, we need to get educated on it.
One quick follow-up. About how many miles do you have to put on to meet all these meetings?
My truck has 327,000 miles on it now. I do use the county vehicle at times also.
So, a lot?
Yeah.
Okay.
But it takes me out of the office quite a bit. But I do have 2 delegate commissioners, for people who want to come in and talk to the county commissioners. They're there most every day. So it's not vacating the county office. So we got backup there to answer anybody that comes in. So I'm out and the other information that can be thereafter applied back to the county.
Thank you. Now, Ken, you just covered about the state routes. The question that came up was for yourself and Mr. Albertson was, what have you done and how will you strive to keep the stage grouse off the Federal Endangered Species Act? Do you want to add anything to that, or should I turn it over to Mark here?
I'll just add a little bit.
Okay.
Well, I worked 21 years for the Forest Service, and I dealt with the Federal Agencies like Fish and Wildlife Service on endangered species, and things of that nature. And I changed to the Bureau of Land Management to come to Lake County. And I got interviewed, and they asked me, what is the #1 priority? I've gone through the California Cotton, I've gone through the Spotted Owl, and I saw what happened there to working class folks. I still wear a hickory shirt because all my friends in Oak Ridge are loggers. And went down to southern Utah, Northern Goshawk, another thing. Keeping that sage grouse off the endangered species is critical. Because the Endangered Species Act is the most litigated law of the land. Environment, if that got listed, you try to run a cow out on Bureau of Land Management or up on the forest, you get litigated. We have to keep it on. If that grouse got listed, it would have a devastating effect in the western United States on federal lands. Anybody who commercially utilize federal lands.
Thank you. Mark?
Like Ed said, there would be no more grazing on federal lands. There would be no more motorsports on federal land. I haven't, I'm hunting. I haven't studied sage grouse as much as I'd like to. So that's all I'm going to say now.
Thank you. Okay, let's see here.
We're pretty much hitting the 8 o'clock timeline too, so unless there's.
Oh, are we at it?
We're past it. We're past it.
Oh, we're past it?
So do we have to go to 8 a.m. now?
Not my
And if so,
fault.
can we have a
Quick clarification question from the candidate to our county commissioner as a citizen. The cybersecurity committee that you say you sit on, is that Association of Oregon Counties or is that the state?
It's state, but in the bill that created it, it mentioned having a county representation on it. And wiped my eyebrow, and somebody thought I raised my hand.
And just the Association of Oregon Counties is the exciting part for me if I would become a county commissioner, is because there are all kinds of committees that address all kinds of issues regarding counties all over the state, and to be involved with the panels and committees that would address issues on the east side as your county commissioner is an exciting opportunity that I'm looking at, becoming your county commissioner, to be involved with those works that represent the county, like cleaning up Alkali Lake. I mean, just things like that.
Thank you.
Just being involved with that work on multiple levels, bringing other talents and skill sets to bring talents to solve problems. As Bruce has said, in many different ways, there's a whole bunch of professionals out there that can help us. And working with the Association of Oregon Counties as a county commissioner is an exciting opportunity for this county. And thank you for participating with them as you do. Tremendous resources there.
Well, I'd like to thank all of our county commissioner candidates for coming out tonight to answer our questions. I'm sorry I didn't get to all the questions. I'm trying to get to as many as possible. We'll be down for a few minutes. You may be able to catch them and ask them a few questions. So, thank you, guys.
There's no coffee.
Yes,
No, I went away. I love you.
I want to go